Hi friends, this is Kaushik Ranchod from the Ranchod Law Group. Welcome to our immigration show. Today we're talking about one way for you to get legal if you entered without a visa or you're subject to the 10-year or 3-year bar. So you'll want to stay tuned to watch this video because I'm going to provide you with a case study of how we were able to do this. My name is Kaushik Ranchod. I represent clients throughout the United States and at embassies worldwide. So I invite you to connect with us at 916-613-3553 if you do have questions, or you could subscribe, comment below, and smash that like button. All right, let's dive into it. The I601A waiver that came out of the Obama administration has helped many people, and we have used this waiver to help you, if you've entered without a visa, to be able to get a green card. But how do you do this? How do you qualify? So first of all, you have to have a qualifying relative. Well, what does that mean? Qualifying relative means you need to have a spouse who's a US citizen or lawful permanent resident, or you need to have a parent who's a US citizen or lawful permanent resident. Now, let's move on to what is required. So you need to demonstrate extreme hardship, and that's a very high standard. These cases are not easy to get approved, and that's why we spend a lot of time on preparing a very detailed legal argument to get the best possible case that we feel we can submit so that we can demonstrate extreme hardship. Now let's talk about the process. The first step in the process is filing the immediate relative petition with USCIS demonstrating that there's a valid relationship. This alone could take anywhere from 6 months or longer, depending upon what's going on with COVID, depending upon the government backlog. So these processing times are subject to government backlogs. The next step in the process is paying the NVC fee bills. And then the next step is filing the I601A. So that's where the rubber meets the road. You have to demonstrate that you have extreme hardship. Mere separation is not enough. The way that we do this is by looking at all of the different hardships and by looking at your unique situation to evaluate what those are, and then making sure that you provide the documentation that you already have about your situation, and then outlining that documentation in our legal argument to USCIS. So that's what we're going to talk about in the case study that I'm going to explain to you how we got a case approved. I just wanted to, before we do that, talk to you about the last step. That's where you have the interview at the US Embassy, and then when you come in at the port of entry, you'll get a temporary I-551 stamp if your case was approved, and then you will get the green card actually physically mailed to you. So now let's talk about how we were able to get this case approved. So in this case study, our client, he was on DACA. He was brought here to the United States with his parents. So we used that as an equitable factor because he didn't have the intent to actually come into the United States unlawfully. He was brought by his parents. So that was one factor that we discussed. Now, just because that's not your situation doesn't mean that you wouldn't get your case approved, but in this case, it was an equitable factor. Then he got married. So we discussed financial hardship because he was the breadwinner of the family. So his wife was dependent upon him. And what's important to note in these cases is that not only do you need to demonstrate that there would be hardship if there was separation, but you also have to demonstrate hardship if the US citizen spouse actually went to the home country. So you're making two arguments, not just one, because this is where I see a lot of mistakes happening, is where there's only one argument that's made, and then the USCIS will try to pick that apart and say, oh, well, you only demonstrated one of these two prongs and therefore your case is denied. So you want to make sure that both arguments are made. Now, going back to the financial hardship. So with financial hardship, like I mentioned earlier, he was the breadwinner. She was dependent upon him for the health insurance that they received. So she had received health insurance through him. She wouldn't get it if he had to leave. We also argued a form of career hardship because she was going to school and she wouldn't be able to do the same type of education, follow the same kind of career path if she had to leave and go to Mexico. Another form of financial hardship we argued was that they had a home that they just recently purchased. She would not be able to continue to make the mortgage payments, therefore she could possibly lose their home if he had to go home. Now, not only that, there's also the country conditions of Mexico that we talked about that we like to include in every brief where it's applicable. So this is how we were able to demonstrate extreme hardship in this case and get this case approved. What we like to do is, first of all, when we connect with a client, is do an audit of all of your unique life circumstances to determine what your unique hardships are, because everyone's different, because everyone's life story is of course different. So by doing that, that's how we were able to come up with the career hardship, how we were able to come up with the financial hardship.